The whole gym.
Like
70 kids
robbed
without a gun. Like, yo, everybody give me your coats, give me your Walkmans. I couldn't even carry it. Some of the guys I robbed had to help me carry the stuff with them.
Long ago, Fat Joe came out and said he lied in 95% of his rhymes. What did you think of that?
He told the truth for the first time, that he's a liar. That you can't believe nothing that comes out of his mouth. He's a liar.
One thing Fat Joe is notorious for is his so-called legendary hip-hop storytelling. He always got some wild tale ready, whether it's about himself or someone else, but more and more people are starting to say those stories might not be real at all. Some in the industry have even put him on blast, giving him the shady nickname Tino. Still, no one can deny that Fat Joe knows how to grab attention when he starts talking. Fans admit he's entertaining, but now the big question is, are his tales truly epic moments, or just flat-out made-up lies? But the real problem starts when Fat Joe's stories go from funny to flat-out unbelievable. Some of them are so wild that even folks who weren't even around back then can instantly tell. Something just doesn't make sense. One of the most outrageous tales he ever told proves it. Fat Joe once claimed that back in high school, he robbed his entire gym class. Not a handful of kids, but the whole gym, around 70 students. And according to him, he pulled it off without a weapon, just by walking in and scaring everybody into handing over their stuff. 70 teenagers, all intimidated by one guy? Sounds more like a movie script than real life. As if that wasn't crazy enough, Fat Joe even claimed he stole so much that he couldn't carry it all. So the very kids he was robbing supposedly helped him haul the loot out. Now that's the part that had everybody's jaw dropping in disbelief. Content creator Will Mills jumped in and said what most people were already thinking. This story just doesn't add up. First off, the setting. A gym in the Bronx would have been way too chaotic for someone to pull off a heist like that without a single adult noticing.
The whole gym.
Like
70 kids
robbed
without a gun. Like, yo, everybody give me your coats, give me your Walkmans.
Then there's the math. 70 students, and not one of them fought back, questioned him, or even tried to stop it. They all just stood there and played along. Mills tried to be fair, even giving Joe a little benefit of the doubt, saying maybe he robbed a couple of kids back in the day. But the whole class? Come on, that sounds like pure fantasy. Sure, robbing one or two kids sounds believable, but 70, all by himself, and then getting help from the same people he just robbed? That's where the whole story completely collapses. And that's not the only head-scratcher Fat Joe has dropped over the years. He's told plenty of stories that leave fans raising their eyebrows just as high. One of the wildest, his so-called connection to Tupac.
Guys I robbed had to help me carry the stuff with them.
Back in 1995, during the height of the East Coast versus West Coast war, Fat Joe went on the radio and made claims that supposedly stirred up drama with Puerto Rican inmates who backed him. According to Joe, word somehow reached Tupac in prison, and Pac himself allegedly picked up the phone to call Joe directly. Joe claimed they squashed the issue in a quick chat, no bad blood, and then he even sent word to his guy Charlie Rock LD to hold Pac down while he was locked up. The whole thing sounds more like a Hollywood script than real prison politics. But in a recent interview, Tupac's cousin William Lisa shut that whole story down without hesitation. He admitted Fat Joe had respect and influence with his Puerto Rican people, but the idea that Pac needed Joe to save him, Lisa said it just didn't add up. According to him, the New York State prison where Pac was locked up was actually run by people who already knew and loved Tupac. He wasn't in a place where folks could push him around. If anything, he was surrounded by solid individuals ready to protect him the moment he stepped inside. Lisa revealed that when Pac arrived, people were literally waiting for him with care packages, ready to make sure he was good. And here's the kicker. Pac didn't even want their help.
Well, I said, yo, he's cool, but, you know, if they step to me, it's going to be Tupac's locked up upstate in New York. The Puerto Ricans hear that, and they're, Poppy, Tupac got beef with.
Hussein also explained the real reason Pac got pulled from general population into segregation. It wasn't weakness. It was because his ties with those powerful figures made him too much of a force inside the prison walls. Prison officials didn't want any chaos breaking out, so they placed Pac in segregation for safety. Which is why the whole idea that some random Puerto Rican inmate was pressuring him so badly he had to call Fat Joe for backup makes zero sense at all. And that's just one of the times Joe got caught stretching the truth. Another big claim of his that recently got exposed? The story about Big Pun. For years, Fat Joe has gone on record saying he looked out for Pun's wife and family after his passing. He bragged about giving her money, helping her set up a business, and making sure she was financially secure. But according to Gangugu Roach, a man who actually specializes in helping artists and their families recover lost royalties and publishing checks, that couldn't be further from reality.
Pretty much put me in the game. One of my brothers, he said, yo, Joe, I got Pac on the other line. I was like, Pac?
His version paints a completely different picture than Joe's carefully crafted narrative. Gangu revealed that he actually dragged Fat Joe into court on behalf of Big Pun's wife after finding out Joe had been pocketing Pun's royalties for over 14 years. According to him, Joe was allegedly generating fake royalty statements and even working with Jelly Bean Benitez to send Pun's widow bogus reports to keep her in the dark. And get this, Pun's wife had already tried hiring multiple lawyers before Gangu, but none of them could get her justice. When Gangu stepped in, though, he finally took Joe to court and exposed what was really happening. And this is where Fat Joe's lies really start stacking up. He publicly claimed he gave Pun's wife money, when in reality, she didn't see a single dime. On top of that, Joe went on interviews insisting there was never even a court case, when there absolutely was. Gangu admitted he was stunned at how easily people swallowed Joe's version of events without question. He even spilled another bombshell.
I got a problem with you, Joe, like this. I know what's up, this. And so, we sent the kite out to the Puerto Ricans and be like, nah.
When a Big Pun movie was being developed, the producers wanted Fat Joe attached so he could use his name and connections to push the project forward. The irony. Behind the scenes, he was the very one accused of robbing Pun's family blind. But according to Gangu, Fat Joe allegedly refused to lift a finger for the Big Pun movie unless Pun's widow went public and said he never stole from her. Of course she refused, because according to her, he absolutely did. So at this point, Joe isn't just a smooth talker. He's painted as both a liar and a thief. Yet somehow, people still eat up his wild stories like they're gospel. Another prime example of Joe's ever-changing, questionable storytelling came when he decided to drop a bombshell about none other than the notorious B.I.G. In 2023, during an interview on Cam Capone's platform, Joe claimed he and Biggie had recorded an entire project together back in the day. Not just a track or two. He said they had a full album with 8 to 10 songs. And the only reason the world never got to hear it? Joe insisted the project was scrapped, maybe even destroyed, because the records were supposedly way too disrespectful, packed with disses aimed directly at Tupac.
With Puerto Ricans, his people. But as far as Tupac being in prison, having to call Joe to keep the Puerto Ricans off his back because they think that he got beef with Joe in the street or some. I don't know about that.
On the surface, Joe's claim about Biggie almost sounded believable. After all, they did have a relationship. They were both from New York, ran in the same circles, and always showed mutual respect. So at first, people thought, okay, maybe. But once fans started digging, the cracks in Joe's story became impossible to ignore, especially when you line it up with his own past statements. Let's rewind to September 2018. Fat Joe sat down with Vlad TV, and when Biggie came up, he told a very different version of events. Back then, Joe claimed they were working on an album, but only managed to record 4 songs before it fell apart. He even said Puff Daddy and the Hitmen were producing the project.
The prisons in the New York State penal system are people that we know. They people that love us. They people was going to walk all over him. That wasn't going to be the situation. He was in prison with people.
Fast forward to March 2021. Joe was live with Swizz Beatz and Timbaland during the height of Verzoo's hype, and suddenly the story shifted again. This time, Joe insisted he and Biggie had 5 tracks done, and then came Lil Cease, Biggie's right-hand man, ready to step in and clear the air once and for all. In December 2021, Lil C sat down with Vlad TV and dropped some serious truth about how Biggie really felt during the East Coast versus West Coast war. According to Cease, Biggie hated the idea of fueling that drama. He told Junior, MAFIA straight up, dissing Tupac was off limits. Big made it crystal clear. If any of you record a diss track, I'm done with you. That right there shows exactly where Big's head was at. He wanted to stay locked in on the music, not the beef. And if Biggie was that firm with his own crew, why would he suddenly flip and record an entire album of diss tracks with Fat Joe? The logic just doesn't add up. Then in January 2022, Cease appeared on The Art of Dialogue and shut the rumors down completely. He said point blank that during all the years he spent glued to Biggie's side, he never once saw or heard about Big recording anything with Fat Joe.
There were people already with care packages for him. Like that is telling Pac, if you got problems, let me know. I'm gonna make sure that the CEOs know blah, 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 and this and that. And Pac telling him, nah, that's all right, I don't need none of you guys.
Cease admitted they may have tossed around the idea of working together. And yeah, those kinds of convos weren't unusual. But a full collab album? He said it simply never happened. But when it comes to actual songs, Cease was crystal clear. None ever existed. He also stressed something major. Biggie was not the type of artist to waste time on full-blown diss tracks. Yeah, he might slide in a slick bar here and there. That's just hip-hop. But an entire tape aimed at Tupac? That wasn't big at all, especially when the beef was already getting out of hand. Now here's where things get even messier. There's this mysterious rumor floating around online about a clip that supposedly popped up years ago on World Star Hip Hop. In it, D himself was said to have commented on the alleged Fat Joe Biggie collab, and according to the story, he denied it ever existed. The problem?
The strongest people in Clinton taking him out of population and putting him in segregation so that he don't incite anything. Does that make sense to you? That some Puerto Ricans is gonna put pressure on him so that Pac can call Joe?
Nobody can find that clip anymore. It's like one of those lost fragments of hip-hop internet history. Maybe it was real, maybe it never existed. But what's interesting is the way fans see it. Most people don't believe for a second that D, one of the sharpest businessmen in music, would ever let a full Biggie project just vanish. Especially not during an era when posthumous Biggie releases were pulling in serious money. If anything, the disappearance of that rumor just makes Joe's story look even shakier. If there really was unreleased Biggie music, fans believe D would have cashed in on it, unless there was some major reason to keep it locked away. On the flip side, if those tracks truly were loaded with disrespect aimed at Tupac, maybe D shelved everything out of respect, or simply to avoid throwing gas on an already raging fire. That part, at least, is possible. But then came Cuban Link, who's never been shy about calling Fat Joe out. He also cast serious doubt on this so-called lost album.
Thousands of dollars. I thought I did the right thing. She spent the money unwisely, right? She comes back and says, Joe, I'm doing bad again. We give her a check out of our pocket.
Cuban admitted Joe did have a relationship with Biggie, but he was firm. An entire project together was a huge exaggeration. He's blasted Joe multiple times for twisting the truth, and in one interview, he gave his own version of a moment that Joe swears proves the collab existed. According to Cuban, he, Pun, and Joe once pulled up to D's recording studio, where they ran into Biggie. For Cuban, it was his very first time meeting the rap legend. They exchanged pleasantries, but Cuban insists what happened next doesn't match Joe's tall tale at all. D asked Biggie to break down his idea for a new track, and Big said he wanted a Spanish-flavored intro, something with that gritty, Latin, gangster edge to give the song a unique vibe. Among the crew, Cuban was the only one fluent in Spanish, but as a rookie, he wasn't sure he could pull it off. With a little push from Pun, though, Cuban stepped up to the mic, and together, he and Pun laid down exactly what Big envisioned. Biggie loved it. He hyped them up for nailing the vibe. Then Fat Joe grabbed the mic and added his own flavor to the track. Here's where the controversy comes in. Cuban Link swears that Fat Joe is now trying to take credit for the very Spanish intro that he and Pun created. He claims Joe has been waving around a snippet of that track, twisting it into proof that he and Biggie supposedly recorded a whole album together.
Everybody bought it and believed it. It was all lies and mediation. We had him admit that he never gave her $1 in his life.
Oh, so he didn't give her no
Nothing, not $1 in his life. He never gave. 2000 to 2014 fake royalty statements was coming out.
2000 to 2014?
Yeah. Joe used Jelly Bean Benitez as a publisher. Jelly Bean Benitez was Madonna's ex-boyfriend from the early 80s. He produced a bunch of Madonna records back in the early 80s. He remixed, he DJ.
Cuban says what really happened was one track with one moment. Nothing close to the full project Joe keeps bragging about. Cuban Link sees Joe's Biggie tale as nothing more than a flat-out exaggeration, and he hasn't held back in calling him out. For Cuban, the truth is simple. There was never an album, just one track born out of a studio session. But Fat Joe's wild stories don't stop with Biggie or Tupac. In 2022, he dropped yet another bold claim, this time saying he was the one who put Trick Daddy and Pitbull on the map. That didn't sit right with Miami legend Uncle Luke, who jumped on Instagram and shut it down immediately. Luke, a true pioneer in the Miami hip-hop scene, set the record straight with a detailed clapback. He said, "I love Joe, but I find this very interesting because I discovered Trick Daddy. He did his first song with me as soon as he got out from being locked up, and he stayed with me."
Basically, we were like, hey, let's get Joe involved. You know what I'm saying? Because it's going to be bigger with Joe. If you do it without Joe, Joe can get all these other people involved. But he was basically saying like, well, if you go on Instagram or if you go out there and tell publicly that I never stole from you, then I'll work with you. Otherwise, I'm not working with you. She's like, why would I do that?
I also discovered and signed Pitbull to the platinum-selling Luke Records label. Luke made it clear, Fat Joe wasn't responsible for their rise, and once again, Joe's legendary storytelling looked more like rewriting history. Luke doubled down, reminding everyone that Trick Daddy did his first songs with him. As a Miami pioneer, he explained why signing a Cuban rapper mattered to him, saying he discovered Pitbull off battle rap tapes. Luke even added receipts, pointing out that just because people didn't see him at every video shoot or birthday party didn't mean he wasn't the one pulling strings. He also reminded folks that he was the one who found DJ Khaled on Underground Radio Mix 96 and gave him the push into mainstream radio. Luke's clapback got a major cosign when NFL legend Deion Sanders jumped in the comments, adding fuel to the fire.
Never gave her $1, zero. So the $750 he was talking about, he lied. The $250 he's talking about, he lied. As you see now, people are starting to see that he lies a lot, but I don't understand why nobody
Tell them, hero. Sometimes they forget. Luke always been that dude. He was one of my heroes and still is. Y'all have no idea what this man fought for. The music you listen to today is because of his heart, conviction, and willingness to fight for what he believed in. After the backlash, Fat Joe went live with Uncle Luke to try and clear things up, but instead, fans were left cringing. Joe tried to walk back his comments, claiming he never meant he discovered Trick Daddy and Pitbull, only that he was the catalyst for them getting signed.
Disrespectful and hateful, and so he died and Tupac died.
And how many songs did you guys do?
I don't know, but a couple, not maybe 8 songs, 10 songs,
But the video told a different story. Uncle Luke sat there looking visibly confused and skeptical as Joe scrambled to explain himself. Fans wasted no time tearing into Fat Joe's explanation, calling it disjointed, shaky, and downright unconvincing. Even Trick Daddy himself stepped in, shutting the whole idea down. From his perspective, the thought of an East Coast rapper like Fat Joe helping a Miami artist land a deal back in those days was nonsense.
Do it in the studio, you know what I'm saying? Maybe they could do it. Because you say you wanted some Spanish shit, you know what I'm saying? And, Pun and Joe, was there. And Pun looked at me. I was the rookie at the time, real rookie. Like, oh, shit, y'all want me to do this? So they both put me to do it. Right? So me and Pun went. So then after me and Pun went and did our stuff. Biggie was like, yeah, he was hyped up. Then Joe went in there and he put his spice on top on a separate track.
Trick made it plain. There were no Southern artists working with East Coast rappers back then because the two regions weren't even on good terms. The culture clash was real, and the divide was deep. Trick said, for him to think that somebody from the East Coast would go get a brother from the South, let alone Miami, and take his music to get him, a deal with no points or strings attached, I don't see that happening. And honestly, Trick's perspective lined up perfectly with the reality of that era. Many pointed out how East Coast rappers often look down on Southern artists, so the idea of Fat Joe risking his reputation to push Trick Daddy's music just sounded far-fetched.
Like a brother. As far as him hearing about me or hearing my music and taking it to somebody to hear it, probably did. For me to think that somebody from the East Coast was going to get a brother from the South, let alone Miami, and take his music and go get him a deal with no points, no strings attached, no nothing that
Once again, Joe's story crumbled under scrutiny. So what do you think? Has Fat Joe been rewriting hip-hop history with these wild tales, or is he just misunderstood? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and stay tuned, because we've got way more industry secrets coming your way. Trick even went as far as saying maybe Fat Joe was just forgetful, or straight up hallucinating these stories. The backlash was immediate, with fans accusing Joe of trying to downplay and erase the contributions of black artists to hip-hop. Many saw it as him rewriting history, forcing himself into legacies where he didn't really belong.
A rat in his life has never told on a person in his life, I kill myself before I tell on somebody. Today's about love or hate. Now, meaning, we call people hate.
Him and Biggie was working on an album together, and he said that they had a whole lot of Tupac disses on the album. How you feel about him saying that?
I don't think so. I'm sure I was.
And if that wasn't messy enough, Joe has also been hit with allegations of being a snitch. He's denied it over and over, but every time he tries to clear his name, the defense just makes things worse. In one video, instead of giving a straight answer, Joe rambled through tangents and vague statements that left people even more suspicious. Sure, Fat Joe is still respected in the culture, but these scandals, exaggerations, and accusations have definitely put a dent in his reputation. So what's your take? Has Fat Joe been exposed as a storyteller who plays too loose with the truth, or is the industry just out to bring him down? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notifications, because we've got way more explosive hip-hop breakdowns coming your way.